Hi, guys, and welcome to my podcast once again. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'd like to say thank you so much for the support that everyone has been giving me, and one big shout out to Caleb Juma who helped me out with a lot of technicalities that I had. But anyway, thank you so much, and I really appreciate you all. So today's topic is one that's really hefty, kind of heavy, but I have some cool young people with me here to help me navigate. And so I'd like to introduce to you guys Joy, T, and Muzi Tankwa. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So today's topic is Mind Matters. So we're going to be talking about mental health in young people, how they cope, different stories, and how we can help each other to just deal with this, because I feel like, especially in the times that we're in right now, it's a very big topic. It's a very important thing that we need to talk about, because a lot of people have inner things that they're not seeing, that they're not showing, that they're experiencing due to this lockdown, due to this whole pandemic. So I'm here with these three lovely young people to talk about all of that and to share experiences. So the main person in this conversation is Tankwa, because last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, he shared a very hearty story coming from deep within. And I really felt his strength and experiences in just reading the post. And I felt like I really have to share this with you guys. And he's here to tell us his journey and how he made it through. So, Tankwa, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Traumatic. It was something that's very scary, and it really took me some time and some strength to actually get to understand the whole process. And of course, I am still recovering, but then taking better strides, and there is progress. Hence, my capability to actually come out, express myself to the world about my experience. So basically what occurred is that last year, January, I had a nervous breakdown. What actually happened is that I was just myself, and I was taking some marijuana. And unfortunately, what was occurring is that the marijuana that I was taking into my system was laced with dangerous chemicals, which then led on to a more worse situation, because it accompanied the depression and the anxiety that I was experiencing. So it became a poisonous combination altogether. Then I suffered a nervous breakdown. Woke up in hospital, then had to try to understand, because I was pretty much confused. With the nervous breakdown, I just went on a blackout, and I just went on the streets naked, and things were happening that I really don't know what was going on, because I had lost my mind. So I was fortunate enough to 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 get back up in terms of recovery. Even it was simply a matter of hours, but then the chaos that would have occurred in those hours is very haunting, because imagine having to lose an experience in terms of understanding what's going on. You don't see what's going on, and it's just a terrible experience in that manner on its own, before you even get to understand what was happening. So
Yeah.
yeah. So those that's something that occurred. Then I had to go through rehabilitation. I entered an institution back there in Cape Town, Falkenberg Hospital. I'm sure it's a psychiatric hospital, and I had to go through that phase of medication. I had to go through that phase of trying to get to understand what exactly was going on. Then once you start looking back, you understand that, as the youth, as us growing up with the situation around globally, with the situation that we have economically back home, politically, and that's in reference to Zimbabwe. The struggles that the ordinary teenager experiences are much more than what we think or much more than what we see in reality, because you end up not being able to control your mental state on its own. You end up bottling some struggles and troubles that you probably are going through. Maybe it's family, maybe it's work related, maybe it's simply just your life, whatever is going through your life. So your mental state is very, very important. And if things go sideways, it's very important that you happen to be with the necessary people around you to actually assist you to get back into a state where you are self again. So back to
Mm-hmm.
struggles and issues, anxiety and depression as you grow up through school, through people you meet, like I mentioned, work related, or it can be the situation of the nation. And basically, it is a global issue with mental illness, because it's our generation that seems to be suffering a lot through certain struggles, and we are afraid to speak, which is something that is very detrimental to the well-being of society, because isintu, or I'll say culture in reference, it will simply say ubuntu, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. A person is a person because of other
Mm-hmm.
people. So even in terms of your struggle, we have to share your struggle, because we need to understand your struggle. We have to have an understanding of what is occurring in one's life, be it family, be it friends. It's simple, simply asking a question: are you okay, my brother? How are you doing, my brother? And instead of bottling things up within you, instead of keeping all those emotions because of your experience generally in life, it really does weigh down on you. And then we end up having to be faced with forms of escapism. We go into alcohol, we go into marijuana, we go into different drugs just to escape the reality. And at the end of the day, we are simply poisoning ourselves and our minds, and it becomes a shock at the end of the day when you wake up on a hospital bed simply because you did not speak. So the matter
Mm.
of us as the youth, as individuals, lending an ear, lending a hand to help a brother or a sister in need. It's not necessarily a person having to tell you everything. It's not necessarily.
We are having a small network glitch. Okay, while we wait for Tankwa to come back, I have a few questions that I'm just going to throw into the room for Joy and Tino to answer while we wait for Tankwa to deal with the network issue. So Tankwa was saying, talking about it, or lending an
Yes.
ear. Are you back?
Yes.
Okay, so I was just about to throw in this
Yes.
question. Like you were talking about talking, people must talk about it or be ready to lend an ear.
Yes.
So I'm asking, how hard or how easy was it for you to find someone you can confide in before you got to that space where you feel like you can share your feelings and your experiences in a public space or on social media? Before all that, how long did it take you to get to someone who you could confide in? And did you actually find that person, and did it help talking about it, offloading?
Well, I'll be honest. Firstly, before you go anywhere outward into the world, before you do anything else, you first have to deal with the first step, and that is having to deal with yourself first. You know what I'm saying? Asking yourself the questions of
Mm.
what okay, what happened, who am I? For me, that was an NDE, a near death experience, because you are unconscious, you don't know what's going on, so you just come back into reality by waking up. So as an individual with that experience, you need to shape up yourself before anyone else can actually be available to lend you that ear. Before anyone else can be available to give you that love, you first have to deal with yourself. You first have to prepare yourself, understand what exactly occurred, understand your emotions, understand the experience. Of course, everything will not come back to you, but that first step of
Mm-hmm.
understanding yourself gives you headway, or gives you light to actually be confident enough to then go to the next person. So it did take some time. I wouldn't really be sure how long it actually took, but luckily for me, or let me say, I was blessed enough to come back home. And yeah, just to mention, I'd been away from home, Zimbabwe, for about 5 years. This experience
Mm.
it brought me home. This experience was the gateway to say, when daughter, it's time to go back. There's more reason to life than this, and it was an eye opener for me. So when I came back home, it was a very amazing experience, being with your family, your father, your mother you hadn't seen in so long. So the people around me are then the ones that, after I was confident enough, then I went forward to say, no, life happens. I received advice, people just showed understood within the family first before I even went out. Then, of course, you do have friends that are family on their own. So I had those kind of people
Mm.
around to assist me, because those people that grew up around you, those people you grew up with, are the ones who know you truly for who you are, because they've watched you grow from a certain stage up until a certain stage. So the people around you, like I say, Ubuntu, as in umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu. The people around you are the
Mm.
cameras. You know what I'm saying? You can replay. It's like a camera. It's like a video. So the people around you are those snippets of yourself. They assist you in realizing yourself, because if they can see, "Oh, but I know this person is not himself," and they will assist you by simply just being there, and maybe they'll be giving you some pointers. Do you remember you used to do such and such? I was a very sporty person in high school. I'm a joyful person. I love having fun. I love laughing a lot. So my friends who know me, who knew me, they'll chip in with those kind of energy to remind me that, hey,
Mm.
brother, this is you. So that's how I began to progress, because of the individual capacity to say, okay, life happens, you can move on. It was a terrible
Mm-hmm.
accident. It was something that was not planned. It was something that you didn't intend for it to happen. It's an experience. Ikudlula esihogweni, becoming a man. I was
Mm.
fortunate enough to survive that experience, to be right here at the moment, to be actually giving this type of experience out to the world and the listeners. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, speaking about being a man, Tino, I want to hear your opinion on this. Being a man, okay, I grew up in a family of just brothers. I was the only girl. And I saw it firsthand how young men are brought up, and it's always bothered me their state of mind and the health of their mind, because you guys are brought up in a realm of toughness and having to be strong, manhood in relation to your feelings, your experiences, and your traumas, and just like how you handle things that go on around you. So how does that affect then the young man's state of mind as he grows? Like, what do you have to say about how in a typical black family you're brought up as a man? How does it then affect how you handle mental issues that you might have?
All right. I'm going to break it down this way. and share my own experience. Um, I was brought up in a family where we talk about everything. I mean, so it's always been easy to approach my parents if I have a problem, and say, "Mom, this is what I'm going through." But in general, I can relate because I went to a predominantly boys' school, and the statement there is, "Men don't cry," and so we hardly got into the nitty gritties of what was bothering us. I mean, you couldn't really be open about how you were feeling about the situation back home. I mean, this was boarding school. You can talk about how you were feeling about your sick grandma and things like that. And one of the sad things was some of us didn't leave that mentality behind. It's just something that you grow up with. And as we all know, the more you grow, the harder life becomes. I mean, the more real life becomes, and you're put in scenarios where your mind is just tested to its limit, and if you don't have an outlet for all that pain, for all that anger, you break down easily. I mean, so I feel like African women might have a better grip on the situation because they express themselves.
And Joy, what do you have to say about that from the women's point of view?
I think from a woman's point of view, even just in our culture and things like that, we are a bit more encouraged, I guess, to share our emotions. I would like to think maybe our
Yeah.
problem then comes from externally, because now the world kind of has its template and its standard for what it feels should be the ideal woman, for what it feels the ideal woman should look like, our behaviors, our mannerisms. If you're a lady, let's say that's a bit more driven, a bit tougher, then you are too independent. And if you're a lady who's maybe somebody who chooses to be a homemaker, then maybe you're not driven enough and how you should look. I feel in terms of our culture, our women are nurturers. Um, African women, let's say, they are nurturers, and they do allow us to show emotion. Maybe not as openly as we'd like, but there's still that room for that. Whereas with the men, yeah, they are taught to kind of tough it up, just as Tino and Tankwa have both said that there's kind of no leeway for that. So I think generally our pressures come externally, and theirs maybe come from internally.
I'm also with you on that one. And then one more question to you, Tankwa. Going through whatever you were going through, like everything that you went through, all your experiences, and you healing right now, is it possible to have a healthy and thriving dating life or marriage life while having to deal with mental issues? Or if both of you in the marriage or in the relationship are dealing with mental issues, what does the relationship look like? Because I feel like the lay person would think, oh no, like it's a train smash, it can't do because there's a lot of luggage or whatever. But what do you have to say about that?
Um, very good question, very good question. But let me just try to put myself in the shoes of someone who's in a relationship or on the verge of a marriage, because
Mm-hmm.
now when we state a mental issue, when we state mental problems, when your mental capacity, mental atmosphere is clouded, I don't think that is ideal enough to move on into a space where you have to deal with another human being, because remember, the person also has their issues, also has their problems. And if you as an individual or the two of you do not have an understanding of your background, of where you're coming from in terms of how is your mental state at this point in time, are you sound
Mm-hmm.
minded in to take up such a responsibility of having to deal with another individual? Remember, it's a 50-50 in the sense of your minds coming together in order for us to have 100%, right? So I don't think it is ideal for you to be operating at 60% in terms of the two of you know what I'm saying? Like, omunye uku
Yeah.
30%, the other is on 25%.
You have to carry the
That-
rest of the 20.
yeah, exactly. So now it brings about a burden because now it's more onto the table. Because remember, marriage itself is another step in life on its own. So that's another level that you're entering. You know, it's like when you're playing a video game and you go on to the next level, the higher you go, the tougher the game becomes. You understand? So
Yeah.
that is the reality. Whether you feel okay, maybe this person is the right person I have to be with and stuff like that. First, have an understanding of yourself before you try to have an understanding of someone else. So I don't mean to say you are discouraged to try and be on that path when you're still trying to recover. That's all part of the process. But I would say you've got to be clear with yourself in the very first place before you decide to go on into other levels, you know, that require a certain amount of strength. And like I'm saying, if you're operating at a 30%, you won't have the capacity to be able to handle a situation that requires you to be at least at 80%. You know what I'm saying? We're not perfect as humans, but then as humans, you know, even isintu siyatsho uba uzinuka amakhwapha, smell yourself first before you try to do other things. So that's my view on it, but I'm still open to understanding someone else's perspective. You know, we have to be objective. So that's my 2 cents on the issue of being in a relationship and, you know, the marriage state and the mental issues. So that's why you find some marriages then, you know, say you've wasted so much time in, you know, the preparations culturally, amalobolo and stuff like that, only for you down the line 2 years later, because you simply did not understand stage one, then everything collapses when you're now on level 4 because you jumped states. You know what I'm saying? Yes.
All right. I just wanted to say something about being in a relationship with someone who has mental issues, or being the person with mental relationship with someone else. I believe that at some point, everyone with mental problems, anxiety, depression, and whatever else is on that spectrum, as long as the two people in the relationship understand what they are going through and don't treat each other like patients, then the relationship can work. I mean, it's important to know that there are highs and lows, and sometimes I have to carry my partner if they're going through a bad phase. And if I'm going through a bad phase, financially, emotionally, spiritually, I don't know, whatever the case, then my partner has to carry me through that. The fact that we believe it's supposed to be 50-50 makes things complicated for us. Then if that's what we expect from a relationship, there are days where I'm up and she's down and she has to make things happen, or I have to make things happen, and once we grasp that, then I mean, things actually work out. You don't have to hide yourself from love because you're going through something. You know, you have to allow people to love you. Let people in, and that's how it works, I guess.
I think I'm from a mixed point of view from the both of them. I will straight right off the bat just say this, that I'm a Christian, basically meaning that I am a believer of God. I believe in God, and therefore I think an amalgamation of both Muzi's point, I mean Tankwa's point, his other name is Muzi, and Tino's point is valid, because I feel, first of all, every person needs to work on themselves, just as Tankwa said, to get to a certain level where you're solid enough, like he's saying, to be able to accompany and carry somebody else. Tino, you just mentioned now that some days you're up, some days you're down. It's taxing for a human being to be down 90% of the time and their partner carrying somebody, let's say, carrying you for 90% of the time, and then only have 10% of downtime to be able to rest. And therefore, that's why I feel, in terms of anybody who's, let's say, facing any mental health issues, be it depression, anxiety, or whatever it is, and to never, let's say, to be afraid to step out, but to also be open and be able to be honest with yourself, just as Tankwa said, what kind of as to what kind of step or stage you're at. And especially, let's say, when you're going through a process like that, life is not about being fearful. At every stage, you can pray and ask God, let's say, for strength and encouragement to be able to go on, and how to be able to navigate certain things. And even in a marriage, if it's the two of you with God included, then you'll never find that there's so much extra weight on having to carry someone or somebody, because each person is having their own personal direct relationship with God. And because as He strengthens each of the two of you individually, when you come together, you are able then to form kind of a good duo or a good compact team. So I do accept Tankwa's point, and I do accept Tino's point, but I feel that life is very cyclical. So at some point, people will be up and people will be down. But as long as there's always that constant communication and that tunnel between a person and their relationship with God, then I think you can take it on from there.
Mm-hmm. And Joy was talking to me about something really interesting about her view, or like her coping mechanism for someone who's going through anxiety and depression and is a Christian and is questioning why they're going through such things when there's a God. Joy, you have something to say about that to everyone?
Yeah, I think I would say, first of all, to anybody who's going through anything out there that's listening, it's always important to be open and honest with yourself. And in that open and honest space, as you talk to God and as you take it to God, in that honest state, that's the first step, and that's the most important step. So let's say you don't know God and you're not quite sure where to start or how to start to navigate. It's simple. Being open with yourself, and then communication with God is basic. Just as you communicate with your partner, as you communicate with your friends, is the same way you can communicate with God. And in that open space, in that open state, being honest and just conversing and talking to God about your feelings, about your state and things like that, that's where you get all sorts of release. It says, come to me because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. That's what the Bible says. And that's prayer for me is one of my major coping points. A second one would be positive affirmation. The world was formed by a word, just one word that God spoke. And God gave us as human beings a power tool and a mechanism, which is our mouths, for us to be able to change things and shift things in our world by our ability to confess and speak things into the atmosphere. So what I have every day in my book is positive affirmations. And regardless of how big or how wild or how outlandish they may seem, I make sure that I go through those things every day. And as you speak words, they never fall to the ground. As we've seen, a lot of people have spoken and testified that people can say things about them, and years later down the line, those words are still echoing in the back of their minds. So for me, those are the two of the most important things. And the third one would obviously be reading your Bible. When you read your Bible, there's so much strength and so much, just so much weight and comfort that you can find within that. The Bible is just like a manual that helps people navigate their life. As you go through there and as you read of the experiences that all of these other people went through, people like Moses, people like Joseph, people like Abraham, all of them had a low point, a point in which life was just knocking them down left, right, and center. But one thing that they always kept constant was their relationship and their constant communion with God. We're just mere human beings. There's only so much we can take. But that's why there's God there, and He doesn't expect us to take it on, all of us, by ourselves. He's there to be able to assist and lift the burden and help. So prayer, positive affirmations, and reading of the Word, for me, that's kept me so much afloat throughout my life as I've progressed.
Thank you. Tankwa, one more question before we leave. What are your thoughts on how I feel like in general, in society and just in our circles, in our social circles, there's a lot of discrimination um, that's directed on therapy and antidepressants and medication. How was it for you? Since you're saying you went through rehab, I'm pretty sure you had a therapist at some point, or you had a therapy session at some point, and you had to take some medication.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, of course, I did have to take some medication, but when you are simply out of the process, when you are maybe still going through the process or in the fire,
Mm,
you simply have to do what is termed the necessary things to do. You gotta take in all this
mm,
medication, you gotta do all this dosage and stuff. And I'll be honest, as I was traveling from SA to here back to Zim, there was a vast difference in the way that these things are administered out there. In South Africa, I
yeah.
was actually being given a high dosage of medication as compared to when I came to Zimbabwe. Here in Zimbabwe, the doctor I attended, his name is Dr. Ranga. It's Dr. Ranga, just to be precise. He states that
Mm,
the amount of dosage, our main goal is that the person uses as little much of medication to. But then that side, when I was in the Cape, I was actually getting large quantities of medication. So I am not sure the medical practitioners out there, or if they do have an understanding globally, because I think a mental issue is something that really needs to be tapped into, and really it has to be understood by all corners of the earth. Because now what I'm saying is you get certain amounts of medication in another area, you know what I'm saying? And you
it's not a standard
exactly, yes,
dosage. It's different. So now you're confused. Uguti, okay, who's right by overdosing and
yes,
who's wrong by underdosing?
yes. And another thing I found while just discussing with a few practitioners, I'm not really well versed in this medical field, or in this mental issues field, but then with my own understanding, when I was having a conversation with one of the doctors, he states that in this mental issues, what can I say, in this topic, you can actually go to 4 different doctors who will actually diagnose you with different states that simply align with a mental issues. One doctor may claim you're bipolar, one talk about something just about depression, but then there is not really a concrete understanding of the different occurrences. A matter of the mind. Fine, they don't
Mm,
they can't scan the spiritual aspect of the mind. They can scan the
mm,
physical, but then they don't know what's beyond there. So I think that's maybe one of the challenges that maybe come through within the field. But like I'm saying, I am not a medical practitioner or well versed in that field.
mm,
But with what was occurring with me, when I came this side, the talk was that no, we want the individual to use less medication as compared to where I was that side, because I was immediately shifting what I was taking, and I was moved into lesser dosages. And throughout the year,
mm.
I was just cutting dosages between the months. You understand? So that is
Yeah.
my view on it, is that I feel there's a lot of work that needs to be done in that field, particularly the issue of a mental state. So that
Yeah, awareness and
when
all
yes,
that's like
yes,
it's not fully discovered or accurately portrayed and dealt with.
yes, yes.
So do you have something like, I don't know, a word of encouragement to someone who's going through what you went through, or someone who's going through depression, anxiety, or just a confused, clouded state of mind? Do you have something to say to them, to help them through whatever they're going through right now?
Yes. I'll be honest, it may be difficult in your mind to come out and start speaking. But the most important thing is at least to try, because we were all born, we started crawling, then we started taking a few steps. Eventually, we could run and we have these abilities and strengths. So it's a matter of simply realizing that, okay, there is a problem, because if something is stressing you, if something keeps you anxious, if you are depressed, that is an alarm on its own to say, okay, there's a problem. I need help. So I would say simplifying strength within you, just to at least spill the beans just a little bit. You don't need to tell the whole story, you don't need
Mm,
to come out there and just be clearing out, because firstly, remember, understand that you are in a bad situation, acknowledge that you are in a bad situation. So that is the most important thing for me, is that at least you start by speaking. That will help, because the person who listens or whoever is around you, you never know, that person can give you some words of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom that can actually shift your whole mental state. So instead of waiting on and just keeping and bottling that, just try to at least say a word. It's important to say, I am not doing fine. You understand?
to just reach
Yes, it's
out.
important to say things are not going well. You have to understand your situation and simply put it out there, Of course, it takes some strength, it takes some time, but then at the end of the day, it's something that you have to do. You, as the individual, you have to do it. And
It's the first step to healing.
exactly, exactly. So I believe those are my words. That's how I feel about it. And I really hope that whoever is listening and is going through certain struggles, is going through issues, the situation might be bad, but I believe we are not born to have such experiences, and then we say that's the end of life. No, it's not meant to be that way. We are destined and designed for the finer things of life, because we are here. You are still alive and breathing. And I don't think the story should end with you being miserable. Everyone deserves to be happy.
True.
So the first step of healing, at least do speak. Just say something. Just say something.
Thank you so much, you guys, for all your input and for sharing this time with everyone. I really appreciate what each and every one of you said. And I'd like to just say to the general public or to whoever is listening to this, we need to start acknowledging the fact that mental illnesses and disorders are actual illnesses. It's not just I'm sad or I can't think happy thoughts. You can't just say to someone, just deal with it or just think happy thoughts with our sharp. No, I'm not gonna be fine, Karen. I'm not happy. I'm in pain inside and I can't grasp what that pain is. So I really encourage people to take it seriously. And if you're going through something of that sort, reach out, pray, like Joy said, read your Bible if you and just have some positive affirmations, and take a step towards your healing, because you staying in the darkness is not going to help you in any way. I know it's easier said than
Mhm.
done, but it's something that we need to take more seriously. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. I know the topic was a bit heavy, but it's something that I felt like really had to be
Mhm.
addressed.
Mhm.
And thank you guys for giving me your 2 cents in the
Thank
situation.
you so much for having us. It was such an honor, such a pleasure.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah.
guys,
Thank you.
thank you so much. If you need some positive affirmations, be sure to check out my Sunday show.
Yes.
I say some really nice things that make the heart really happy. So thank you so much, and I love you guys. I love you guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and it's your beating with the biggest love. I'm signing
More
out.
love and that.
I'm gonna leave you guys with a track from Tankwa. Tankwa is a musician, by the way. Side note, and I'm gonna leave you guys with the track from Tankwa. So please enjoy and stay healthy and stay happy.